All right, so hello everybody. My name is Natalie. I'm a regulatory affairs pharmacist working in the pharmaceutical industry. So before we start off, I'd like to understand when you think about pharmacy, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? Is it that pharmacy is a boring job? Pharmacy just dispense medicines and nothing else? Well, I hope today, after listening to a few other speakers, that you would have a better understanding of what are the different areas that a pharmacist can go into. All right, so just a disclaimer before we dive straight into the presentation is that the opinions expressed in the presentation are just my own personal opinions and experience, and it should not be construed as representing the opinion of any institution which I have worked or been affiliated to in my professional life. Okay, so in our presentation today, we are going to look at self-introduction. What are the skill set needed, the job challenges and satisfaction, salary progression, and lastly, whether I am happy or do I regret moving into this industry. So about me, just a brief background. So I graduated from the University of Strathclyde and IMU. I did a Master of Pharmacy Twinning program and I graduated in 2014. After that, I did 1 year of pre-registration, which is basically something like housemanship for doctors, but you do this for pharmacists. And I did it in a community pharmacy setting in the UK. 2015 to 2016, I came back to Malaysia and I started working in a community pharmacy. And this was prior to getting my pharmacist license in Malaysia, whereby I need to take a jurisprudence examination in order to be a legal pharmacist, a registered pharmacist. And finally, 2016 until currently, I am working as an industrial pharmacist in Malaysia and more specifically as a regulatory affairs pharmacist. So how did I decide to be a pharmacist? Well, for me, it was a personal choice of either being a pharmacist or an environmental scientist. And how did I weigh out the options between these two? To me, I had 3 points that came into my mind. So the first is career stability. So when I look at it long term, in my opinion, being a pharmacist is more stable than an environmental scientist. Well, environmental scientists, you can also be stable, but in a setting like in Malaysia, I felt that at that time, pharmacy would have been a much better option. The second one is purpose or long-term goals. So my purpose was to stay, or my long-term goal rather, was to stay in Malaysia and work in Malaysia and also to look after my elderly parents. So that was my long-term goal, and staying abroad, whereby there will probably be more opportunities for environmental science, would have been a good option. However, because I wanted to stay back in Malaysia and I have a passion to serve this country, so I decided to become a pharmacist. In addition, I also like to serve the community, and I was also very interested in healthcare. And the third point is passion. So I have to admit, I am not passionate about dealing with drugs or remembering all the names of the drugs. I was more passionate about saving the environment and doing things that could help the environment be sustained for the generations to come. However, balancing between passion, stability, and purpose or long-term goals, I then decided to become a pharmacist. So on the journey to making my decision, what are the consultations that I have done before pursuing pharmacy? So in the year 2012 and 2013, when I was studying in the International Medical University, IMU, I worked part-time in Watson's during my semester break. And I would highly recommend, if there's any of you interested in pharmacy, to go try out, do a bit of internship or work part-time in any pharmacy, because from there you get the experience and the opportunity to learn more about what the pharmacists really do. So over here, I gained more understanding on community pharmacy. In fact, I also learned how to take blood glucose reading, and also in terms of measuring the blood pressure of patients. It may be something easy to do now that I reflect on it, but it was a very important skill for me to learn at that point of time. And also, because I had access to the pharmacy, I would take the opportunity to read up on the medicine package inserts that I would always get from the pharmacist. He would keep for me the package inserts, and I'll end up reading them. So with that, I had a better understanding of the medicines or the drugs used. So currently, what am I doing now? Right now, I'm a regulatory affairs pharmacist in the pharmaceutical industry sector. How different it is compared to community pharmacy, I would say it is very, very different. Regulatory affairs is not something that we learn during our degree when we learn pharmacy. In fact, there's a lot, the learning curve is very steep. So currently what I do is the registrations and variations of drugs, cosmetics, and medical devices. So when a product is, for example, manufactured and undergone a lot of clinical trials to show that it is safe, efficacious, and of quality for use in humans, then there is a process of registering that drug to each country's health authority. And so what I do is that I am the liaison between the company's headquarters or the manufacturing site and also our current local health authority, so that I can register the drugs and therefore enable fast patient accessibility to these kind of drugs. The second thing which I deal with is regulatory intelligence and engagement with stakeholders. So what this means is that I, as a regulatory affairs pharmacist, have to be knowledgeable on the local regulations and laws and legislation. So over here, if you're intending to become, I would say, a lawyer or a pharmacist, I think this is the perfect role for you, or the perfect position, because you really have to know the legalities at your fingertips. And also there is a chance to engage with stakeholders. So the stakeholders could be the health authorities, or the stakeholders could also be with the other pharmaceutical industries. And the stakeholders can be with any new business partners, distributors, and also in terms of liaising with your own headquarters if you work in a multinational company. The third thing which I do is pharmacovigilance. So pharmacovigilance is actually the screening of any safety events for a drug. So for medicine, we are always, the patient is always at the heart of our concern. We give priority to patient safety. So for pharmacovigilance, we are vigilant in terms of safety or any adverse event reports, quality complaints that a patient can report to us. I'm also responsible for the advertising of medicinal products, So every single advertisement that reaches out to the public health, or any advertisements that we give out to healthcare professionals, it will need to be reviewed by the regulatory affairs pharmacist. So I would need to ensure that whatever that's advertised to the public will have to meet certain requirements, certain approvals, and it needs to be in line with what is registered with our health authority. Next one that I handle would be quality complaints, batch recalls, and even falsification of products. So over here, it's a lot to do on ensuring that the patients receive the best quality medicines that we can offer. And lastly, I deal with is medical information. So sometimes the healthcare professionals or even patients would have inquiries. This can range from product inquiries to side effect inquiries, for example, or even requests for a clinical trial paper by healthcare professionals. So what the regulatory affairs pharmacies may be responsible for is to handle these kind of queries and medical information. This is usually handled by the medical affairs manager, who usually, in most cases, would be a medical doctor. And this could be a shared responsibility between a medical affairs department with a regulatory affairs department. So what are the skill sets needed for the current job? So for a regulatory affairs pharmacist, a pharmacy degree would be preferable. However, if you just have a science degree, such as biomedical sciences or any pharmaceutical sciences degree, then it will be possible for you to apply to become a regulatory pharmacy or a regulatory affairs executive or an associate. So having a pharmacy degree is not mandatory to become a regulatory affairs personnel, but it is preferable because ideally there should be a license holder in the company for the importation and wholesaling of drugs. If you have a medical degree, that would be also very good, but I would recommend being a medical affairs manager if you have a medical degree. You will also need to take the pharmacy jurisprudence examination. So this is in order for you to become a license holder in order for the importation and wholesaling of medicines. So what is the attitude that you need? Being a regulatory affairs personnel, you need to be professional. You need to always have this mindset that the patient's safety is the main concern. At the end of the day, whatever drugs that we are giving out to a patient, we should have the patient safety in our hearts. So we need to be professional in how we decide things. We need to be ethical as well. And the second thing that we should have is a positive and growth mindset. So what I mean over here is because regulatory affairs is not something that you learn during your pharmacy degree. So it's something that you need to constantly learn on the job. So there's a steep learning curve, and you need to always adapt to the changing regulatory landscape. Any new regulations, any new legislations that come out, you need to have that adaptability to read up and to know about any new or updated regulations. So therefore, I say you need to have a growth mindset. In terms of positive mindset, there will always be challenges in any job. But the most important thing is the attitude of how you handle that. And so therefore, a positive attitude to resolve the challenge would be of much value to your company. So what are the behaviors that you should have Number one, I would say you need to be accurate and attention to detail, because every single thing that you do, there may have legal repercussions later on. So you need to be accurate in whatever you do. You need to have an attention to detail, because even one small error can lead to huge consequences. The second thing that you need to have is an analytical mind and also problem-solving skills. So over here, like what I mentioned, the positive attitude, it ties in hand with how you solve problems, because there would be a lot of ad hoc challenges that you need to handle. You need to have an analytical mind as well. You need to strategize in terms of, for example, if you have a problem, how are you going to strategize for a registration of a product? So I'll give you an example. A registration of a product can take up to 2 years to register a product. So prior to registering a product, there will obviously be a lot of clinical trials done. There will be a lot of testing done. So how do you strategize that whatever test that you do, whatever trials that you perform, that later on it will meet the timeline of when you submit this registration and to get an approval. So a lot of strategy is required. The fourth behavior is good communication skills. So because you have to engage with different key stakeholders, like what I mentioned earlier on. So it's very important to have good communication skills. You need to be tactful in how you word things, and you need to also communicate not just within your company, but outside your company, to the health authorities, to even your business partners, to distributors, and within your company with the other departments in your company, like your finance department or your supply chain department, your quality assurance department. So there's a lot of communication skills that you need to have. And finally, the fourth one is to be systematic and organized. So being in regulatory affairs, you would have a lot of documents, a huge load of documents. And if you are systematic and organized, you would be able to find the documents that you need to perform your job systematically. So it's important to be systematic and organized as well. So job challenges and satisfaction. So in terms of challenges, the main challenge that I have working would be that I'll need to multitask in different areas. So if you're in a larger MNC company, certain things like medical affairs will be handled by its own department. Certain things like pharmacovigilance, they would have their own department. But over here in the company where I work, it is also a very good learning experience to experience the different departments, but also sometimes multitasking can be very challenging, especially when there are a lot of ad hoc problems to solve. So over here in my company, I deal with not just regulatory, but I also deal with pharmacovigilance, medical affairs, quality assurance. So there is a lot of different departments that I would need to be involved in. So I would say that would be one of the main challenges. And because of that, there is a steep learning curve. So in the future, ideally, if you were to go into a big MNC company, you would be specialized in certain areas. And so now I'm a jack of all trades, but perhaps I'm not a master of one yet. And in the future, I would like to specialize in a specific area, which is regulatory affairs. So it's something like, I would say, if I can compare, it's like to being a doctor. You first have to know everything about medicine, and then only you specialize later on into a certain specialty that you have the passion for. Okay, So over here, my passion is in regulatory affairs, and that would be what I like to specialize in. In terms of satisfaction, there is a lot of job satisfaction that comes with being a regulatory affairs person. You ensure patients' accessibility to safe, effective, quality medicines. So over here, our aim as a regulatory affairs personnel is to make sure that patients get access to medicines. And for us, our job is to ensure that it's easy for a patient to access medicine and it's also fast. And the second one is the job satisfaction comes with resolving any difficult issues. So when I'm faced with any difficult issues and I can resolve it together with the teamwork and cooperation of other departments, it gives me that satisfaction. And the third one, summary of the job. So over here, overall, am I satisfied? Yes, I am satisfied with my job. It's something that I'm very passionate about. But in the future, I would like it to specialize in a certain area. In terms of salary and progression, so it depends on whether you have a pharmacy degree or a science degree. It depends very much on that. So the starting pay on average would be around 4K. But as you make your way up to the top, the progression can be 6K or even managed level. It could be about 9K. So this depends very much on the company which you would join. So bigger companies, they could have a bigger, higher starting salary. Smaller companies, they could have a lower starting salary. So it depends on your negotiation skill as well. Because these, the salary and also the benefits, it depends very much on a company basis. Okay, but having said that, it doesn't mean that having a pharmacy degree or having a science degree that there should be a superiority of one over the other. So what is the progression that you can make when you enter the pharmaceutical industry? So you can become a regulatory affairs manager, or you can even be promoted to become a regional regulatory affairs manager. So regional, I would mean, for example, in the ASEAN countries, whereby there is a harmonized ASEAN regulation, there could be a possibility for you to become a regional person. Otherwise, even if there's no harmonized regulations, you still can manage different countries at one go. So for example, my current job, I am managing Malaysia and Brunei. It doesn't mean that it's regional, but regional would be a larger scope. You can also progress to become a pharmacovigilance manager. All right, and the third one is you can also progress to become a medical affairs manager. But in most cases, medical affairs manager would be a medical doctor. So it depends very much on the company which you would join. So the last question would be, am I happy? I would say, I would leave this as an open question. I think it depends very much on the mindset that you have and your attitude towards resolving issues and problems. Overall, generally, I'm very happy because it is something that I'm passionate in doing compared to community pharmacy or hospital pharmacy, whereby it is not my area of passion. But being a regulatory affairs personnel, I'm very happy, and my company is also a very good company, which I value the mission, the values, and also the people in this company. So overall, I am happy. I hope that this presentation would help you at least some bit to gather a more deeper understanding that you can explore different areas of pharmacy, and it's not just limited to hospital pharmacy, or even community pharmacy, but there is more to it than just being a pharmacist. You can progress further. And if you have any further queries, questions, and answers, feel free to do it in the right channel. Thank you.